Good evening and welcome to the Murfreesboro City School Board meeting. Would we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. First on our agenda tonight, we're going to welcome our new school board member, Mrs. Collier Smith. Collier's to my right, your left. Welcome to your first official, well, no, you met at the session and were sworn in. This is your first televised meeting, and welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome to you.
Welcome.
We'll entertain a motion for the approval of our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Gilbert, good evening. Communications.
Yes, we have a few communications. November 13th through 19th is American Education Week. The theme for this year is Great Public Schools, a Basic Right and Our Responsibility. And we also have an exciting announcement. We have the Excellence in Education celebration that will happen on February the 10th at Stones River Country Club, and the honoree will be former Representative John Hood. So we certainly want to let the community know that that is going to happen and appreciate the fact that the City Schools Foundation, of course, will be sponsoring that. And then the third communication is really a presentation. As you know, we opened for the first time in our new building this last week the Franklin Heights Family Learning and Resource Center. And so I've asked Tanya Hobbs to come tonight and to talk with you a little bit about that center. Tanya?
Thank you all. My presentation is supposed to be up there any second. While that's loading, I'll just say that I have the pleasure of working with Andrea Bell at the Franklin Heights Learning and Resource Center. And of all the things I do at City Schools, I look forward to my time at Franklin Heights probably more than anything. I go over to homework help and tutoring on days when I don't have to because, quite frankly, it's just a wonderful way to end my day over there. 15 months ago when I came to Murfreesboro City Schools, one of the things that Dr. Gilbert and I talked about was making that Franklin Heights Learning Center, Resource and Learning Center, the sort of heart of that community. We wanted the lights to be on over there after dark. We wanted people to migrate to that center. We wanted Murfreesboro City Schools to have a presence in that community that was even greater than what it had been in the past. And so we changed the focus just a little bit. When the center was first opened, Dr. Gilbert, in the early 90s, we're talking generally here, the focus had been to help those families around a lot of subsistence issues. But at the time, there weren't a lot of other options for those types of subsistence assistance in the community. Since that time, there have been a lot of other agencies that have come about that offer food and clothing and things like that for those families. So what we wanted to do was expand our reach, collaborate with those agencies in the community to provide subsistence assistance for families, and really bring to the table over at Franklin Heights what we do uniquely best, and that is educate. And we really wanted to educate not only the children of Franklin Heights, but the families, because research tells us that the more engaged that the family is in education, the better the children are going to perform in school. So we really wanted to sort of shine a light of education in that community. And so we were very fortunate in that earlier, back in the summer, I guess, Dr. Gilbert, we were notified by Murfreesboro Housing Authority that we were going to receive an annual lease on a commercial building, 2,500 square feet approximately, up at the front of the Housing Authority, because before we'd been located back on January Street in 3 actual apartments, which they did beautiful, wonderful things in those 3 apartments over the years. But moving to the front of the Housing Authority in an actual commercial building has just been an enormous blessing. And the synergy that's been created from that collaboration in the community, the things that have occurred in that building, the way that building has transformed has really been a testament to community collaboration, because our partners have furnished that building. They have decorated that building. It is an absolute jewel. My slideshow, John? The slides are not projecting. Let's see if we can.
Are they back there?
There we go. That's our logo, the Family Learning and Resource Center, empowering people to believe, achieve, and succeed. We really do believe that education is the way for families to work their way out of poverty, and we want to help them do that. That is our building. It is an actual building, and it's just every time I look at it, I still can't believe that this opportunity came for us. I want to say a word about the folks at Murfreesboro Housing Authority, because this simply would not have been possible without that strong collaboration. We had our grand opening last week. We had I think we had between 50 and 70. Not everybody signed our little, rather than having a guest book, we had a photograph, and we asked people to sign that. We're going to frame that for the lobby. Pat Nolan with Murfreesboro Housing Authority, again, we could not have made this happen without that very, very generous gesture on their part, and the collaboration that goes back all the way to the early 90s when this entire concept was born. This is the lobby area. When you come in that front door, there's stairs going up and stairs going down. The stairs going up there go into the reception area adjacent to the computer lab, and the downstairs area is where the child care and the multipurpose room are. I included this little sign because not only are we working with the kids at Franklin Heights around academic issues? Certainly we help with homework, we do tutoring, but we also encourage positive behavior. And they are rewarded with a point system for positive behavior and for doing their academic work as well. This is just a shot of the child care area. We do have a partnership with New Vision Baptist Church in which free child care is provided when we do our GED classes. And so this is an area, again, completely furnished and outfitted by our volunteers. The alphabet wall there was done by interns from the MTSU social work department. And that's just another view there of the child care room. Again, all of that material was donated from community partners. We have a small library where children can not only take books out when they're doing homework, but they can also take books out and take them home. We worked with our instruction department. We've also had some retired teachers working with us. Those are age-appropriate little bins there with activities, learning activities that are divided by grade that the homework helpers can use every day. Again, reading nook, outfitted completely by a group of volunteers. The computer lab there is just an absolute center for us at the Resource Center, because the children at Franklin Heights are dealing with a technology deficit. They come from homes where there are not computers. And so the technology that's going to govern their lives as adults hasn't even been invented yet. Mm-hmm. So we certainly have to keep them abreast of what is available now. So they're able to work on computers during homework help. They're actually incented with computer time. They value those computers so much that we can use computer time as an incentive. So they really, really love those computers. It's very, very important for them to have computer time. Those computers came from our teachers. When the teachers converted to notebooks, we were able to get some of their I don't want to say cast-offs, but they were they were gifted to us in that process, and the children are getting extremely good use from those. Now, during the day, when the children are not there, those are available for adults to come, and they do job searches, and they do other things on the internet as well. So that has been something that's really, really popular in the community, both with children and adults, and that's during homework help. Kids working on the computer, doing learning games, and adults there to help them with that. That's a reception area. Again, just such a different space than what we have had before. This is the kitchen area. This was outfitted for our open house. We don't typically have punch on the counter. That was that was a special occasion. And again, just to sort of give you an idea of the programs, this is a shot of homework help. I want to say a word about our fabulous volunteers. How great of a volunteer do you have to be to come in and wear a flashcard on your head and play a game? And this particular volunteer is a regular with us. She comes just about every day, and that's 3 days a week for 2 hours. We find that empty nesters seem to be really great volunteers, and this lady has sent her children off to college and enjoys coming and working with ours. Again, one-on-one homework help. We have enough volunteers on many days to do one-on-one work with children, which is so important. That's another shot of Peggy Seneker, one of our most dedicated volunteers. This is our multi-purpose room, which is downstairs. We were the recipients of some wonderful cafeteria tables that are absolutely like the ones that we have in some of our schools. These were donated to us by a church. Those are in that multi-purpose room, and again, you can see one-on-one help going on there with homework help. Again, children congregated there in the multi-purpose room. This is our points board. I include this simply because the children do work off of a point system in the homework help and tutoring program. They earn 5 points every day for doing their homework and for good behavior. Those are their mailboxes down there underneath the points board where they keep up with their paperwork. They have behavior cards and those kinds of things, and they keep up with those in their mailboxes. And the top 10 point earners every 6 weeks do go on a field trip. All the children, no matter how many points they earn, are able to trade in those points for some sort of prize or an incentive at the end of 6 weeks. They're really learning about deferred gratification in that process, and that's a shot of them redeeming their points. That was the announcement of who the top 10 point earners were. This is just a shot from our old building, just sort of to go through and just remind you of the programs that we offer there. This is our GED class offered through our partnership with Rutherford County Adult Education. These ladies are at Money Mondays, which is a financial budgeting, family financial planning class that's offered by Dominion Financial. This is a shot that was taken during Imagination Station, which is a partnership that we have with Read to Succeed and Success by 6. These folks are participating in Project PASS, a computer readiness class. This photo was taken during our summer sessions. We did offer sessions all summer for children, learning enrichment classes. This was during a math project. They figured out how to build the tower doing math. And Cliff Sharp with Greenhouse Ministries was our partner for that math week. And they came out and did this. These are just a couple of kids apparently trying to do some meditation there on the lawn. I'm not sure what that was for. This is a shot of the kids redeeming their tickets during the summer for a trip to a water slide. I think that was at Beach Bend Park. This was our National Night Out. Bingo, that was the bingo tent there. This young man is also at National Night Out. Some more shots from that event. We had a great time that night, yes. They tell our story much better than we can. This was a very nice volunteer from the Discovery Center who brought a very fatigued ferret out to the National Night Out. And it was about 100 degrees that night, and that was one uncomfortable ferret. The children loved it. The ferret did not. But this was a shot also of National Night Out. The fire department does come and open that fire hydrant up, and the children are able to enjoy that. And this, of course, is from Homework Help. And just another smiling face. There again, they tell our story much better than I possibly could. But again, that center is open from 8 to 4. We invite you to come, get a tour anytime you'd like. And Homework Help is from 3:30 to 5, Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. If any of you would like to see that program in action, I invite you to come. We have anywhere from 25 to 35 children every day that Homework Help program is in session, and there is lots of learning going on during that program. So thank you all.
Dr. Andrews and then Ms. Phillips.
Thank you so much, Tanya. We certainly could not do it without the board support and without the community support.
I just wanted to comment that this program, the Franklin Heights Family Learning and Resource Center has brought Murfreesboro national applause and acclaim. We've won awards. That's nice. But what's really great is to hear the stories of lives that are changed, of mothers who found good jobs, of children who've gone on and done really well in school, of families who've been revitalized. It's such a wonderful example of cooperation and coordination. There's probably, you could probably count on one hand how many cities have a program that's this good and has so many volunteers and organizations involved. I think a lot of people don't know what a jewel we have.
Ms. Phillips?
Well said, Dr. Andrews, well said. I just want to take a minute and thank Ms. Hobbs. You used the phrase shine the light on, and you shine the light on that program for us tonight. Thank you so very much. So many exciting things going on, making such a difference. And I feel like when I hear things like that, I think we are so fortunate to live in a community that engages and supports this kind of thing. But we couldn't do it without the amazing leadership of Dr. Linda Gilbert, who really, I don't know how you bring all these different groups together the way you do, but you do a fantastic job of that, and hats off to you for that.
Thank you. I'm blessed to have good friends.
Mr. Campbell has a question.
Ms. Hobbs, you said 25 to 35 students per day. Where do these students come from? Are they all from that particular area?
For the most part, they are from the Franklin Heights neighborhood. The Franklin Heights housing project has 144 units, and there's also what we call a Section 8 housing area in front of the Franklin Heights area. So that's Franklin Heights is January Street, Bridge Avenue,
Right.
basically February Street, and that area adjacent. We do have a few children who come from that neighborhood as well, but for the most part, it is from that neighborhood. And we had those are 25 to 35 individual children. Overall, we have about 70 to 80 that will participate in that program throughout the school year. So, when you think of that, we have 144 units, and more than half of the children in those 80 children out of 144 units, when a lot of those units contain nothing but adults, is a pretty good participation rate.
Thank you.
Mr. Washington?
I want to make a special thanks to New Vision Baptist Church.
Exactly.
They really have stepped up to the plate and leading by example for adopting basically Franklin Heights. You know, board members in the community, you need to know how much resources they put into adopting and doing what they do over at Franklin Heights. And I hope that some other community churches and whatever can do the same thing. There's some other places, Mary Way. But I know what they do. A good friend of mine, Jeff Gill, goes there, and I hear him bragging about what they do at Franklin Heights, and he's right. That's what it ought to be about.
That is an invaluable partnership, and
It is.
And they do invest a tremendous amount of time and resources. The field trip that we take every 6 weeks is sponsored by New Vision Baptist Church and Project Go as well through the Housing Authority. And the Franklin Heights programs are available to everyone, anybody in Murfreesboro City Schools. So
That's right.
So in many ways, New Vision is reaching out to the whole
They are.
to the whole
They
district.
are.
So how many organizations are involved? Have you counted them recently?
There are 71 organizations in the Franklin Heights Coalition, and
Wow.
many, in all, and some are more active, of course, than others, and some actively provide programming, and some just provide support. But it is a large coalition, and because we've expanded to this year, we're receiving funding from United Way, from the Community Development Block Grant, and we just recently got a grant from the Tennessee Commission on Children and Youth to incorporate another parenting program into our services at Franklin Heights. So we're, I think our reach is sort of expanding, not only with the folks that are in the coalition, but also funders are, I think, seeing what we're doing, and they're wanting to participate in that way as well.
Are there any more comments or questions for Ms. Hobbs? Thank you so much for all you do.
Thank you.
Consent, you have something else, Dr.
No,
Hill?
that's it.
Oh, okay. Consent items, a motion, or is there any question about anything that's on our consent items? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion and second. All in favor, board, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Action items. Ms. Baker?
The first action item that you have before you is review and consideration on first reading of Board Policy BO 39, School Support Organizations. This is just merely a revision to this policy. The changes are addition of the actual definitions out of the state statute. This is a policy that is strictly based on state statute. It is not something that we have a whole lot of leeway with. So in order to be clear in the policy, I did pull the definitions out of the state statute and include them, as well as some other language directly out of the statute to help clarify the policy when I'd been asked questions by some of the school support organizations as they were working on their paperwork. I went back and reviewed the policy and determined that probably some of these additions would help it be a little bit clearer to those organizations. And in case people are wondering what is a school support organization, they include for our system our PTAs and our PTOs and the City Schools Foundation. In other school systems, they would also include booster clubs, foundations, parent-teacher support organizations, or any other non-governmental organization or group of persons whose primary purpose is to support a school district, school club, or academic, arts, or athletic, or social activities related to a school. And they have to collect or receive money, materials, property, or securities from students, parents, or members of the general public on behalf of the school. So do you have any questions regarding the additions or changes I've made to this policy?
Hearing none, I will entertain a motion for the approval on first reading of BO 39.
So moved. I move we approve BO 39 on first reading.
Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next policy that you have before you on first reading is School Board Policy STU 24. It deals with Student Disciplinary Hearing Authority. And under the state statutes, if a child is suspended, expelled, or remanded from school for 10 days or more, they have the right to file an appeal of that disciplinary decision within 5 days of notice of the decision to a disciplinary hearing authority. And a disciplinary hearing authority is a body that is appointed and delegated by the board. This policy is, the changes to this policy are that the board is delegating their responsibility to appoint members to the board to the director, and many other systems use the same method in order to establish their disciplinary hearing authorities, because they do come up very seldom in our system. And when they do, there's a need to appoint individuals to the board rather quickly, because the time frames for holding these hearings are very short under the state statutes. And it's easier if the board delegates that authority to the director to appoint members to that the hearing authority, and as opposed to the board needing to come together and get their calendars together, where the board can meet as an entire group to just make one appointment. And so the language reads that the board delegates to the director of schools the responsibility to appoint members to a disciplinary hearing authority. The director shall appoint no more than 7 members to the disciplinary hearing authority, and the 7 is a limit under the statute, which shall include 3 school system administrators and at least 2 licensed employees of the board. The school's principal shall not be a member of the hearing authority. So whatever principal is issuing the discipline obviously cannot serve on the disciplinary hearing authority. And if the child does have is in the special education section, then the special education supervisor must serve on the disciplinary hearing authority. And the director or designee of the director is to serve as a non-voting chairperson of the hearing authority. That the DHA, the disciplinary hearing authority, will hold a hearing where the child and their parents can present their information, and they will have the ability to consider the information and determine whether the discipline was appropriate, and they'll render a written decision that will be presented to the director and the board. And that if the parent is not and child are not satisfied with the decision of the DHA, then they have the right to appeal that decision to the board. Now, the appeal to the board will either serve as just a review of the written materials presented to the DHA, or the board may choose to hold an actual hearing. That is strictly at the discretion of the board as to whether just to review written materials or to hold an actual hearing. Also, that particular, if the board chooses to hold a hearing, under the state statute, the hearing would not be subject to the open meetings law. It would be a closed hearing unless the parent and the student request in writing 5 days prior to the hearing that it be an open meeting. So those are a quick summary of this policy and the changes that have been made to the policy. Are there any questions?
I have a question. How often does this come into play?
Very rarely. I think we've maybe had 2 since I've been with the school board, and that's a little over 6 years.
I have a comment.
We've never had one before the board in the time that I've been on the board.
Well, it would certainly make it easier for the board to delegate this responsibility, Dr. Gilbert. I do have some concerns about delegating away the board's responsibility in situations. I do have some concerns about that. So it would certainly be easier for the board members, but I'm not sure that is the route we ought to take.
Okay, Mrs. Baker, in this document that we're looking at, there was a place where they could ask for a hearing with the board.
Yes, they can.
So we're still in it. They can request.
They can ask for a hearing, but that hearing can be simply a review. Is that a review as a board together, or you're just simply sent the documents at home to review? Or
the board would be provided the documents and have the opportunity to review them individually, and then come back to the board meeting, and they would decide, take a vote on whether to uphold the decision or not uphold the decision. The vote, of course, would have to be made at an actual board meeting as to how to, whether or not to uphold the decision or change the decision of the DHA. One thing that this law does take into consideration is the confidentiality for the student that is being subject to the discipline, and any potential students that must testify in hearings. That's why much of this is done out. There's the ability not to have an open meeting unless the parent and student choose to. That's strictly their choice. But it's designed under the state statute to help maintain that confidentiality for the students, the student records that are involved.
I have a question. Let me make sure I understand you, Ms. Baker. The parents have the right to choose an open meeting if the board chooses to hear it at a board meeting?
Yes.
So it's like they can't choose to have an open meeting if the board doesn't choose?
Right. First there has to be the disciplinary hearing authority has their hearing. They render a decision. Then the student can appeal that decision. They've got 5 days to appeal that decision to the board. When the board gets the student's appeal, the board has to make, the first decision is, are we going to review this on paper, or are we going to grant a hearing? So that's the first decision. If the board chooses to grant a hearing with live witnesses, testimony, court reporters, the whole 9 yards, then the parent and student have the right to ask that that hearing be open to the public. If they don't ask that it's open to the public, under state law, it is a closed hearing. It is not open to the public.
I just wanted to make sure I understood about the, at which point they could ask for a particular type of meeting.
Right.
Or-
If the board chooses to only review the documents and render their decision, then there is no right to a hearing. And the board's decision is final. There's no appeal following the board's decision.
Mr. Campbell.
I think one thing that we have to remember as this board, and because we're dealing with students in grades K through 6, these standards that are state law are standards for students K through 12. And a lot of times in upper grades, maybe middle school on up, you will have more of these disciplinary hearings than you would with students the age that we're dealing with. Most of, I'm assuming, Kelly, if it's the same as what I'm accustomed to, most of it is dealing with expulsions, and we don't have that many students in our grade levels that are going to be expelled from school. They may be suspended, but there's a difference between a suspension and expulsion. The expulsion, you're putting them out, and they can't go to another school within the county. They can go to a school outside the county, but not within the county. But most of our students are not in that category, so we have to kind of remember that these are laws of the land for students K through 12, not just K through 6.
And you're correct. This process only comes into play if a student is suspended for 10 days or more or expelled from school. So these are very severe disciplines, and we rarely with our elementary age children have this level of discipline.
And that 10-day suspension, if I'm correct, is 10 consecutive days, not 10 accumulated days.
You're correct.
So for that one event, they may be suspended for a total of 10 days throughout the school year, but it may be for 5 or 6 different offenses. But this is only if they're suspended for 10 consecutive school days. Not calendar days, but school days.
Right.
Okay. Ms. Phillips, do you have any more questions or anything? Yes.
No, thank you.
Are there any more questions? Ms. Duggan?
I'd just like to say I think it's a well-written policy, and of course you always make sure everything's in compliance with the law, which is very important. And I would like to move that we adopt this on first reading.
I second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, sign of aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next action item before the board is review and discussion of the proposed director's contract. The contract that you have before you is the term of the contract would start when the current contract ends. It would start on July 4th of 2012 and is a 4-year contract ending on June 30th of 2016. It also includes an increase of the director's salary from $103,000 to $110,000. That it does bring us up into the range, the 2004 salary study range, on the low end of that salary study range. Before we were not within that range. And I did delete the sections from the previous contract that were strictly in there based on it being a new hire, such as the background check and the medical evaluation. Those have already been performed, so they did not need to be included in this contract. Those are the major changes to the contract. Ms. Wade and I did meet with Dr. Gilbert and go over the contract with her. I did take the input of each individual board member and incorporate it into what the draft contract that you have before you. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to entertain them.
Ms. Campbell?
Kelly, I don't know whether this is for you or whether it's for Mr. Anderson. Where do we get the increase, the $7,000 increase? line item budgets did that come from?
Since the start of the term of this contract, not till after the new budget would be adopted, it would be a new budget item in the director's salary line. There's no effect on this current year's budget.
Ms. Smith?
I appreciate the salary increase, and I actually think that's a very good idea. Dr. Gilbert deserves that increase, and she's done a good job, and I really appreciate that. My concerns are more about the length of the contract. In April, we will have an election, and if I've been doing my homework, trying to, talk about what the jobs of the school board members are, and one of the primary responsibilities is to hire a director or to renew a contract of a director. If we go with a 3-year term, there's the potential that those people that are hired in April by the voters would not have that opportunity if we had a 4-year contract. If we do a 3-year contract, I feel pretty good about that. So I just want y'all to take that in consideration. I think a 3-year contract would be better and goes more along with what I think the spirit of the policy is, because the policy is for that the director's term cannot exceed the term of the service of a board member. And 4 years is right. Some of those board members will never have that opportunity, and that is a major responsibility as a board member.
Mr. Campbell?
But let's remember, this contract does not go into effect until July 4th of 2012. So consequently, if we have new board members coming on in May, and that's when they will start after the April election, isn't that right? May? Mm-hmm. Then they will have that opportunity to change that contract, but then at the same time, Dr. Gilbert's contract would be 4 years, which would be the same as the new board members or old board members reelected, whatever the case may be, because they will start another 4-year term in May. You understand where I'm coming from? Maybe.
Ms. Duggan, and then Ms. Smith, we're going to come back to that.
Just for clarification, if we were to vote on this contract tonight and say passed it, it becomes a legally binding document as of now, does it not?
Yes, it will become a legally binding document once you approve the contract and I obtain the signatures of Dr. Gilbert and Ms. Wade.
Just for clarification.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to say that just so the taxpayers understand that our director has not in the past of her own, desire accepted any mileage reimbursement or any car allowance, and I know she doesn't like me saying that, but I just think that the taxpayers should be aware of that, and in the new contract she is still not accepting those benefits, which would be typical in most anyone's contract that's a director of schools.
Dr. Andrews?
I'd like to say that I appreciate and understand, your points, and I think you make a good point that someone new coming on might not be able to participate in that decision. I'm looking at it from a different end because I have been on the board for a long time, and of course I'm looking forward to seeing a stable, excellent school system. I think that it's really important right now for the teachers and the principals to feel like they're going to have some stability in a time where we've had a lot of change. And some of it's been really uncomfortable, the new evaluation system and that kind of thing. I think we have excellent morale in our schools now. they need, I think the teachers and all need to know that they have our support for a long time, and I believe that giving Dr. Gilbert our support for the next 4 years also sends that message to the teachers and the principals. We are basically half of the people that are agreeing on this contract as well. And Dr. Gilbert has not asked for a raise at all. She's basically said that's not important to us. We do feel we need to be in some kind of a competitive range. However, she has expressed to me that this is really important for her. You know, she needs to know that she's got 4 years to deal with some of these huge issues like the new evaluation system, the race to the top, the No Child Left Behind. She's done an incredible job leading our system, our teachers, our principals, our central office. We had amazing improvement last year. Due to some other pressures, we may not see that this year with the attention to evaluations and all. But I would support a 4-year contract. I guess that's also because I have seen other systems. Finding a really, really good director is tough. It's really tough. You know, you see, I've heard all kinds of stories, and we're fortunate we haven't lived one of those stories. But I just feel like we'd be more secure and stable if we did do the 4 years. And I do see your point. And if we don't do the 4 years, you know, that's good. That's just my impression and opinion.
Anything else, Ms. Smith?
No, I don't know how to explain it to Mr. Campbell. We have 3 people up for re-election. 4 people up for re-election for 4-year terms. Mm-hmm. So those people, as part of their responsibility for the 4-year term, would not have the opportunity to be a part of a new contract coming in, because it would come in afterwards. That's what I meant. And I do think that it is, there are not many things that are really down that are job responsibility, but one is the director's hiring and the director's contract.
Ms. Duggan.
One thing to keep in mind is that any new board members that come on, they will have the opportunity to evaluate the director, to give input that way, to let the public know whether or not they think the director is doing a good job. If the director was not being evaluated on a regular basis with an instrument that actually told us something, I might be in agreement with you. But I feel like it's critical when we look at what's happening in public schools currently that we ensure that stability as much as possible.
Is there any more discussion about any part of the draft that's proposed for Dr. Gilbert's contract?
And may I make a comment?
Yes, ma'am.
If you would like to suggest an amendment, I guess this would be the time to suggest it, or no?
You want to amend something on here?
No, I'm just saying if Mrs. Smith would like to do that this might be your opportunity if you wanted to do that.
Do you have a suggestion?
No. I'm just saying if you wanted to, that, if you wanted to propose something different from this.
What I would like to know is, may I ask Ms. Baker?
Go ahead.
The time frame, we have a blackout time frame. And so right now, essentially, she has nine more months on her contract, and then it would be 4 years after that. Right? Is that correct? She has 9 more months?
The new contract starts July 4th of 2012.
And when is the blackout after the election over?
I did not bring those dates with me.
When does it expire?
I believe it's
45
45 days following the election, 30 days before the election, and 45 following the election. I may be getting them flipped. So I did not bring the blackout dates with me.
So one question that we had was, in the spirit of the law, which is that the term would not be more than the school board members, right now we would really kind of have in effect, even though I guess the document wouldn't be signed, 2 parallel contracts.
No.
Is that right?
No,
Okay.
it would be 2 very distinct contracts. The current contract does not expire until July 3rd, and then the new contract would start on July 4th. So it's 2 separate contracts. They do not run parallel.
I see.
Okay. Dr. Andrews?
I would like to ask you, would it be possible for us to change the date of this contract to start January 1st and end the other contract early, start this one January 1st, and then the 4 years would be up, while they were still board members, and they would have that opportunity? That's just a thought.
Well, we're legally bound by the term of the current contract. We would have to have a basis for ending the current contract early or reach mutual consent with Dr. Gilbert to end the current contract early. But
I wonder if she would agree to do that, to end it early. If that might be all we need. Is that right?
I would make a suggestion.
Just a thought.
If we're not clear on what we want to do on this contract, I would make a suggestion that other avenues or other things that might be able to be done, that Ms. Baker and Ms. Wade meet with Dr. Gilbert and let them iron out what they might like, or take the suggestions that we might have tonight, because that's who got together on this contract that we're looking at now, if we're not going to adopt this contract.
Mr. Campbell, I don't see myself changing position on this, because I think right now with what we're facing in this school district, you're looking at 6 months to a year of finding a new director. I would be looking at that, at finding a new position. And so I don't see myself changing.
Okay.
In good faith and a long discussion, I have to commend Mrs. Baker and Dr. Gilbert for bearing with me the day that we went through this. Looks like our discussion has really come to a 3-year, so the new board members could get a chance, and the 4-year that we offered. I agree with Ms. Duggan wholeheartedly that that's why you have the evaluation system in place. I questioned the same thing with Mrs. Baker and was satisfied with the answer, because I wanted to know if we were not happy after a certain amount of years, was there, and it's in the contract, it's on page 4 or 5. If Dr. Gilbert is not doing work satisfactory to the board, after you get new board members, first off, you give her the benefit of the doubt to do anybody else, we're going to evaluate her and talk to her. I had no big problem, but I like the 4 years, as we've all discussed, with stability. We go back to that many times. We've got a lot going on in Murfreesboro City schools. And with new people coming on, they still got to get a year or so under their belt to really figure out from the policies in their classes what's going on. And we're here to help them, the ones of us that are still here and the ones that will return. So if anything is out there that they don't understand or they have a disagreement about the contract, then they've got to find a reason to not be happy with it. And it couldn't be from her job performance. It would have to be something else. So I had rather not, Mr. Campbell. We spent a lot of time, and everybody had ample time to make phone calls, emails, or anything else that was necessary. And when we left that day, I was hoping after Mrs. Baker talked with all the board members that we would come up with something, and we came up with a finished product. Unless there's an amendment or something else, there's no need to go back over this, because we've been over this 2 or 3 times.
I just want to tell you I appreciate your comments. I appreciate everybody's comments, and I appreciate our new board members' comments. I think everybody here has made really valid points. And for me, it comes down to this. This is a sticking point with Dr. Gilbert, and I'm not willing to, this is something very important to her, and that consistency, and it's just very important to her. And since I am not willing to cast her aside for this one point, then I'm ready to call the question on the contract.
Mr. Campbell?
Do you need a motion?
She just called for it.
She called for it, and
I'll second that call.
There's a motion and a second to approve this contract. Mrs. Ridley, if you call the roll.
Dr. Andrews?
Aye.
Mr. Campbell?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Duggan?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Nay.
Ms. Wade?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you. I believe that is all the action items that I have for the board tonight.
Thank you. Reports and information.
Under reports and information, you have a personnel update. You also have your expenditure and revenue report and your attendance report. Mr. Anderson.
Okay, on the monthly expenditure report, we are experiencing, there's a drop in revenue from previous years on other county revenue and other local revenue, but our sales tax number is up. Now, the other revenues can work themselves out, but that's the only one that's dropped down. The rest of our revenue numbers look really good. So we're hoping that the other local revenues will catch up, because they're from past due property taxes, liquor taxes, and things like that. But the sales tax are up, so that's a good, healthy sign to it. On the expenditure side, we have some categories. We're at the 25 percentile of the year. We have the Board of Education expense is at 39%. And what that is our workers' compensation bill came in earlier than usual, so it's up $363,000, and that's why we pay the whole compensation bill for 1 year. But the good news is it's less than what we had budgeted, so we'll be in good shape by the end of the year on that one. The other area that is up is Pupil Transportation, and that's because of the buses we bought that hit the books at this year, even though we approved them previously. And the other support area, 72810, is for technology, and we did a lot of work over the summer improving our technology and our upgrades, and that one also works itself out over the year. We just spend a lot of money during the summer getting our equipment and things in. Overall, our expenditures are 23.1%, so we're in good shape overall for the year on expenditures. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Have we got all of our buses up and running? We got drivers on all of them, and I know we were having a problem with that earlier, but is that...
Yes, all of our buses are running. We have received all of our buses, and we are hiring new bus drivers. We just hired 2 new ones, and we hope to have that all totally stabilized very soon. I'm anxiously awaiting when we can expand that extra route that we've been talking about.
Thank you.
The other item is the membership and pupil-teacher ratio report. We are up 9 students over the previous reporting period, and we're up 185 over last year. That's really good information. Our pupil-teacher ratio in K through 3 is at 18.83 to 1. That's also excellent. And our 4 through 6 ratio is at 20.82. That, again, is an excellent number. Our overall PTR for all grade configurations is 19.56 students to 1 teacher. So we feel really good about those. Our attendance was dropped a little bit to 96.3%, but that is way ahead of the state normal, so we, again, are feeling good about that number. Pre-K has 437 students. Total pre-K. The special ed part is at 57 right now, and we always experience during the year an increase in special ed. We went from last year like 23 up to 70-something, so we do expect more special ed students and people as they come in as their birthdays change over to 4-year-olds or the 3-year-olds. So we do expect additional students in that area as well. But it's good news right now in our membership and attendance. We feel really good and strong about where we are. Does anyone have any questions on that?
Ms. Smith?
Did you just say that we have an increase of 23 to 70?
Over the year, yes. Under the
In special ed.
special ed laws, we're required, once they hit their third birthday, that we have to take them in if they're a special needs child. So, anyone else have any questions?
Is that pretty much what happens most years, or?
Yes, that's our pattern to continue to increase to grow, and we did add an extra classroom over there this year for that anticipations. Right now the ratio's at eight students per class. Typically it'll get up around 10, Priscilla, and that, or 11, so 4, Priscilla.
They're big by the end of the year.
Yes, they do grow during the year.
It's not like kindergarten, you have to be 5 by a certain time. It's on the third birthday.
That's all I have in that report. Thank you.
If there are no more, we're down to other business, and the first thing on the agenda for that is our next meeting is going to be November the 29th. Instead of our regular meeting the Tuesday before, it will be moved to the 29th. So board members, be sure and mark your calendar.
Of course. Would it be appropriate at this time, Mrs. Baker, for us to discuss the resolution that we were sent concerning charter schools? I know not to vote on it, but just have some discussion. Is that appropriate?
Not on the agenda. Is there a time crunch to get that out? Otherwise,
No.
it would be better to
Okay.
For the policy meeting.
All right. No problem.
Okay, then it will be, well, if Mrs. Ridley, if you'll add that to our policy session. And also, Mr. Rainier, who is not with us, did send us a big hi, and and he is watching us tonight, so he's probably got Nancy critiquing the meeting and writing down what he wants to send an email to Mrs. Ridley to forward to us. And we definitely want to say good evening to Dennis and that we miss him. And like we did last week, send him a big hi. And I know he's probably waving and smiling back. And we do hope and pray that Dennis recovers soon and gets a chance to come back to our meetings.
I'd like to put something on next month.
All right, Mrs. Phillip.
I'm interested in putting something on next month's agenda, or for our next meeting's agenda.
Work session.
Work session's great. For many years now, I have been interested in interest-based bargaining, and I'm hoping that at our next meeting we could get some information about that and see. It's been very effective in many places, and it might be a good time for us to look at that, and so I'm just very interested in it. So I'd like some information if we can get some.
Okay. Mr. Campbell.
I think we all will agree, and I haven't asked anybody, but I think that you will. We appreciate the feedback that we have gotten from teachers and principals in schools pertaining to the letter that was sent by this board to the state regarding evaluations. It means a lot to know that teachers understand, and it means a lot for us to know that they know that we are in support of them and trying to help out as much as we can. So I think everybody would agree. We thank you for those letters that we received.
Well said.
Ms. Duggan.
And in light of that, I would just like to compliment Mrs. Payne and Mrs. Schmidt at the preschool. I was over there recently volunteering, and that instrument is really not written to be used with 4-year-olds. And they have, I mean, truly, but they have really worked hard to stay within the guidelines of that instrument and be true to the instrument, but also to be fair to the teachers and the students. And they've spent a lot of extra time, as I know all our principals have, to make sure that instrument is what it needs to be. But I'm just, it was good to hear them talk about what they've done to make sure that it's a true picture of what the teachers are doing with the children.
Our principals have done an amazing job, and I mentioned this, I guess it was yesterday morning on WGNS, but they really have done an amazing job. Every day it seems that we get new information on the evaluation, and what they have, I had a teacher that said, we just decided to circle the wagons and do what we need to do for kids, and I think that's probably a pretty good attitude. We will start, actually Karen has already started working with the principals, but we'll be doing their evaluations starting next month, and and we'll be discussing that tomorrow, so that will be something else added onto their plates. And I think that it's really remarkable what our teachers have done, what our principals have done. I appreciate central office. They have gone out and worked with the principals on this and helped with explanation, but it's quite a task, and it has taken a tremendous amount of time, and I certainly appreciate our principals' work.
Ms. Campbell?
I know Ms. Duggan travels some through the state. I'm supervising some student teachers in Rutherford County and outside, and just to let our teachers know, you're not in the boat by yourself. The people all across the state are feeling the same, what I want to say, tension, the same apprehensions, the same frustrations that we're facing right here in Murfreesboro City Schools. So it's a statewide thing.
Ms. Smith?
Thanks to Dr. Gilbert and to Lisa Trail, I have been enjoying going and traveling to the schools and getting to know the principals, and I appreciate how the principals are really working with the teachers and making it more positive and trying to help them just put it into their everyday lives and in their way that they're educating the children, and not making such a big deal about it, but they're doing what they've been asked to do. And I really appreciate that each principal that I've visited with they're up for the task, but they're trying to minimize it for their teachers, as much for their teachers as they can. I appreciate that.
Are there any more business or anything that any board member needs to bring to the table before we ask for a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.